Hey everybody, in this video we're going to have a look at some excerpts from the live streams that I did last week with Bryan Jones. Bryan is the coach of New York PoNY and Empire, who have both won championships in recent years. It's always interesting to chat with Bryan because he has a brilliant eye for the game and he's open-minded to new ideas. Whilst we go over the final from the 2018 National Championships, we talk about the pros and cons of possession-based offenses, countering endzone isolation, controlling the tempo of the game on offense, how using more teamwork on defense to counter side stack ISO has evolved the meta of the game. We look at a sweet huck from Yacht to Sean Keegan. We see an example of poaching causing a breakdown in defense, and then we look at a good switch between Katz and Mike Drost. This is only a tiny bit of footage from the live streams, but if you want to look at them in full, then see the video description. Without further ado, here's the footage, and I'll see you again soon.
There's also a good debate right now in the chat about being able to work the disc, and I'm not sure exactly. Matt seems to be promoting, taking the shorter passes, taking the less risky throws, and I certainly understand that, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but there's a certain amount of time where, a 95% completion, if you take 20 of those in a row at 95%, your chance of a turnover is above 50. So there's a certain point where an optimal possession is probably between 5 and 10 throws for an offense. Some teams...
So I've thought about this quite a lot, and it can depend on. So if the offense is actually set up to retain possession, then the high percentage throws become higher percentage throws, which kind of skews the data a little bit, because when you're thinking about and analyzing offense, then it comes from almost always a system or a setup which is not designed to maximize options, which is not designed to sustain possession for a long amount of time. The maths is true that anything under 100%, the more passes you take, the more chances they're going to be of turnover. But I think that percentage, the completion percentage rises when you have an offense that's centered around maintaining possession.
Totally, I agree. I think the one team that really skirted that what I was saying was 2016 Ironside. They did a great job of trying to score in 40 passes. And I know that, other offenses really, Frank Hugenhardt's a really big proponent of this, of moving the disc backwards. I think it's just tough with pressure. It's like pressured passes versus easy resets. Throwing to somebody who's wide open and you have no confusion about it, that's an easy pass. Those things don't really add up to creating more turnovers. But having to work and grind up the field at 3-foot passes can be really hard for a team. And it takes a certain mentality of player to, go through. And here's this throw. At this point, I'm feeling really confident.
One thing with Frank's ideology is he assumes perfection, basically, of all players. So, in the perfect world, you're playing an offense where whenever you move the disc, it opens up more options, which that's probably true of most offenses. But in spread offenses, the faster, the more the disc moves, the more angles can be attacked, the more the defense has to cover. And then if you have the perfect kind of mental game as well, then you can see exactly where to attack and when to attack. And then make the full use of the fact that you have all these options. But most systems have relatively fewer options, and so players kind of just aren't used to seeing such a variety. So therefore, being able to pick the right options that are going to be most damaging for the defense, rather than the ones that just keep the disc alive, is like a new skill in itself, and one that you kind of really only learn when you have to face all those options at the same time.
Yep, totally agree. I think it's one of those things that's going to be interesting. I think as the sport evolves, you're going to push more towards fast-moving offenses and changing too. The complexity of offensive games will go up. If we ever got to a real pro type of situation, then we would do a good job of being able to do that. And I think here's a reason here of why playing person defense in the end zone is just so difficult. Because Revolver's just able, once they get this downfield, it's so easy for them to score. And I think it's interesting because they keep a guy in isolation a little bit, more crowded this time, and it opens up. We don't poach as much. I'd love to poach this here. I'd love to give help to this defender. Spielman is isolated, so that'd be really good.
What, coming from any of the ones on the screen, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would love anybody behind the play to just get in there. There's just no reason. Like, at this point, this is just so hard to defend. Why not make them throw 3 more passes? Like, at this point, it's not about just playing great defense. It's like, can I get 3 more passes? Because, if you assume a 98% completion percentage, if we get 50 more passes in the game, we're going to produce another turnover. So if we can get, 3 to 10 passes extra out of an end zone possession that are pressured, then we're going to add up, and eventually that should crack and give us another opportunity.
So
just extend.
Here's an idea. It might be a bit of a stretch, but the defender that's marking this player in the end zone could potentially, when he sees this is developing, and you kind of know this is developing from like way back over here when this pass goes down the line, potentially this player at the back can come forward, shut out this front corner, whilst the player chasing the player going down the line can actually use that momentum to go and mark up against the player at the back. Kind of like a defensive rotation almost.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things you could do here. I mean, and if you could even like switch the force if you wanted to, that would not be a bad idea, because as long as you could have quick communication, it's pretty easy to go to a flat mark, I think, in this situation, and just try to prevent the easy goal. But I agree with you on those possible switches.
Yeah, if you look at the spacing of the other Revolver players as well, there's just such huge amount of space they've created. And yeah, like you say, 1-to-1 with that amount of space to defend is very, very difficult. Like, pretty much impossible unless you're far physically superior than your opponent.
Yeah. I think, kind of looking at the chat here too, I love the type of conversations I'm seeing from people. Yeah. Nico, I love your point about switching between, slow and fast for offenses. I mean, that makes certain offenses are really hard to guard because of that. And but it also makes the offenses more complex, and so it's a hard thing to achieve.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's like next level stuff for me. Like, there's a lot of focus on spatial control, and again, like, this might be a step far, but there's a lot of focus on spatial control on offense. Like, how do we create these spaces? How do we use these spaces? But temporal control is something that hasn't really been explored. Actually controlling, being so comfortable in maintaining possession that you're able to ramp up and slow down the pace of the offense at will, and to do it in relation to where the defenders are overcommitting. As soon as there's an overcommit, boom, boom, boom. I've got somewhere towards that, mostly in like experimental fun times when I'm on the sideline waving something around, and I'll just be saying like chill, and then as soon as the defender bids, then I'm like attack, and all the offense ramp it up.
It's hard to do. You're right, because it's also, we just don't have that much time. If we practiced every day, I think we'd have more complex offenses, and you'd see that fast to slow happen pretty well.
Well, the thing that's I mean, you have had the biggest impact, I would say, on offense, because you brought a defense to the table which has shown that it can beat an elite team that's playing heavy isolation offense. And what you said is like, well, 1-to-1 isn't necessarily going to be the answer against this. We can actually use teamwork on defense. And that then changes the game, because now offense has to be like, okay, well, if they're using teamwork, we can't do our isolation stuff, because isolation stuff basically depends on them all marking 1-to-1. That's how we get them out of the space. So it's changed the game what you're doing, Bryan.
Yeah, I think there are teams that do a good job though of like doing isolation, but working it well, and it creates like it's one of those things that's makes it really fun, and the meta continue to evolve. I think like it's a great time, and I think Seattle and other people have been trying to do this stuff, and a lot of these thoughts have been expressed by other people, and it's just a joy. You kind of feel blessed in a way, because we knew this opportunity with the players we had. We had made quarters the previous year. Jimmy's coming. We had Lotto. We have Chris playing at the top of his game, as well as Yacht getting better and better. And so you start to really feel like you can aim really high. And I knew that going into the season, I didn't want to go into a situation where we weren't, I didn't want to be underprepared against a team like Revolver. that's really one of the biggest things you can do as defensive coach is like, is this team comfortable? And if so, like, what do you change? Sometimes it's, you just got to do the same strategy and you got to do it better. But here we hadn't varied from our initial game plan yet. And so I felt like, especially with the lead, it's a good time to switch things up. And, you know, the offense ends up scoring here. I think this is the Yacht throw to Keegan.
That's a great throw. I haven't seen Yacht throw deep that much.
Yeah, well, he hit Keegan a couple times this game.
Keegan's been going deep in this game quite a lot, really. Like, he scored a bunch. That is a great throw. I'm just noticing this, what's causing the defensive breakdown here, and I think this player coming over, leaving unmarked over here on the far side, comes over, and this actually encourages this defender to be looser, because it's like, okay, you've got them, so then they get loose. And this is the classic like breakdown defense caused by unwise poaching. I say unwise. It's like sending a false positive. So by this player having such close proximity to the thrower, it's kind of like, right, I'm marking them, and so so then this defender takes a step back. But then when that goes, he then leaves this previous thrower without really paying attention to them. And so then this player that's taken a step back is then not in a good enough position to stop the upper line. I mean, they could have switched a second time. That would have been ideal.
There's a lot of things you could do differently here. But yeah, these breakdowns happen. And like you said, it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, we should stop poaching. Well, maybe we should just poach better. So
we've got a nice switch here between Ben Katz and Mike Drost, probably two of the most heads-up players in the game. Got Ben Katz here, Mike Drost there, and then you've got the two offensive players, and obviously they're essentially crossing over, right?
Yep.
So ideal time to switch, and you can see it happen. Mike Drost hangs out in the lane because he sees throwers looking for something. He turns to try and find his guy, and Ben's already like, it's cool, man, you don't have to move that far, let's just take this guy over here. I left the guy over there for you.
Yep. I mean, that's just communication and intuitiveness. Like, it's cool to see how fast it happens, and that's kind of the goal.